Okay, so according to CB Insights, the number one reason why startups fail is because there is no market demand. And that is true in 43% of the cases. And the reason for that is because entrepreneurs do not take the time to test and validate their startup idea before jumping into building the product. And when I was the director of a startup accelerator program, I saw this over and over and over again. And so in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down 12 methods to test and validate your startup idea in 2023. Let's go. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the Startup Studio. I'm Christian Peverelli, the co-founder at WeAreNoCode, and this channel is dedicated to give tips and tricks for entrepreneurs to build and launch their startups. So make sure to click on that subscribe button below because it helps us so much in developing the channel and continuing to do awesome content for you guys. Now before jumping into these methods of validation, what are we actually validating? Well, essentially there are three key things that we want to validate. The first one is the desirability. This is probably the most important. Is there demand for this specific service or product that you want to offer to people? If the answer to that question is no, then either you're targeting the wrong customer or you're targeting that customer with the wrong product or solution. And of course, unless we prove that there is desirability or demand behind this service or product, there's no reason in moving forward. Now, if you pass this stage, the next thing will be feasibility, which is this actually possible to do? Do we have the resources? Can we get access to these resources? And the last one is viability. Are we able to make more money than we actually spend? Now, if we talk about demand, there are really different levels of validation, right? One level might be a customer saying that they want a specific thing, but there's gonna be a huge difference between what people say and what people actually do. So maybe the next level of validation will be to get someone to click on a link, maybe after to give us their email address, all the way from someone saying something, all the way to someone paying for something. Actual revenue is the only actual validator that there is demand behind this. And so at first you're gonna be testing very simple things of understanding the customer, but then it's really important to go as quickly as possible, as close as possible to revenue so that we can prove that there is actual demand behind this product. Okay, I get it. Now you want to get into all the methods of validation, but it's super important for you to understand some of the foundation before we jump into these methods because each method is going to be testing a different thing. Okay, now validation method number one, customer discovery. Now, customer discovery is the process of talking to potential customers, so people who we think are going to be interested in buying this specific product or service without talking about the product or service at all. So there's a specific method in writing these questions out to understand if this is the right customer, what their specific problems are, if these things are coming up. But as soon as you start talking about your product, remember that people are going to give you feedback. And that's absolutely not what we're trying to do in customer discovery. We're trying to first build a relationship with this individual because that person could be a future customer. And the second thing is to get insight to know whether that is the correct customer to go after and whether they have a specific problem which is worth solving. So the best way to start that is to identify the different customer groups that you think are going to be interested in your product. And then you're going to rate which one you believe is going to be the best to go after first. I would make a list of the potential people and then I'd select the first three that I think have the most probability of wanting this specific product or service. And then I would go out there and talk to at least three people in each one of those categories. Now, once I've run these interviews, I'm going to start getting insight in the form of notes. I want to start organizing this insight so I can see clusters of themes that are coming back because that's going to allow me to visualize the data in a way that's going to give me the recurring themes that come back. And so you're then going to want to make the choice of who is the best customer. And then you can fine tune your interview to go a little bit deeper in that scenario. Now, the great news is the customer discovery is very cheap or free in many cases. So I would absolutely start with that. And you don't know how many people do this wrong. They ask the wrong questions. They don't analyze the data properly. They don't know how to reach people and book these meetings. And if you do any one of these things wrong, you have a likelihood of going down the wrong path from here. So now let's talk about validation method number two. It's called the smoke test. Now the smoke test is a test that we do to act like we've built this entire company to see if we're able to attract people and to get them to take an action that we're looking them to take. So it's pretty much like building a landing page, but there can be so many different formats of this specific test. So the smoke test, what are we trying to communicate? The problem, the specific solution that we have, the benefits and outcomes that people will get from using our product, the features that people can expect from this product, which are going to fulfill the benefits. But ultimately what we're selling is an outcome. It's a promise. It's the benefits that people will have. And we want to organize those in a very clear and concise way that people are going to understand within the first 3 seconds of landing on this page. Basically, do I understand what this does? Do I have this problem? Does this relate to me? And then we're going to incite them to take an action. Now, again, there's a huge number of of actions that we can get them to take. And so it's up to you as a founder to understand, am I just collecting an email address and saying, hey, join the beta list and you're gonna get access first? If it's a service we're providing, we might have a free consultation. If it's an app, we could have a fake download button and see if people click on that. We could also have a fake buy button that leads people to a we're out of stock message. And in some case, it could even be a letter of intent from a large company. But the idea is that we build a smoke test that acts like we built this entire company to incite them to take an action. And so first we want to build it, then we want to attach a little bit of tracking and analytics to it. So I usually use Hotjar and Google Analytics to do that. And then we're going to go out there and start selling yes before we've even built the product. And probably something I should have started by telling you is that the smoke test is widely accepted in the startup community for the past 50 years in Silicon Valley. And just this approach is going to save you a huge amount of money because at least you won't be building something that no one wants. And by the way, for those of you who actually want to learn how to do these things in depth, we have a course in the WeAreNoCode Academy that's going to teach you how to test and validate your business idea in depth. Number 3, surveys. This is where we essentially can ask questions to a customer and we can receive data from a larger number of people instead of having these in-depth conversations with them. It absolutely does not replace customer discovery. That's an essential part of building your business. The key here is to ask questions at the beginning to understand a little bit the customer profile based on what you're trying to accomplish, and then ask them the same questions that you have in the customer discovery interviews. Now in interviews, we keep a lot of questions open. In this case, you might want to keep them relatively closed just for the sake of analyzing the data and understanding, okay, out of 100 people, 46 said this specific thing instead of that thing. So it's actually a great way to get quantitative data. And surveys, of course, can be used at the very early stages, but also in way later stages when we're trying to understand feedback from our customers to improve the product as well. Method number 4, forum searching. Forum searching is the art of going online and finding places where our potential customers are hanging out and see the kind of questions that they're asking related to the product that we are trying to service. Now, there are thousands of forums out there, so you need to understand where your specific customers are. There's also websites like Quora where you can go and see people asking all sorts of questions, and you can actually write down a number of questions your customers might type into search engines and see where these people are answering. What are the comments? Are there more people with that frustration? This is a great way of validating things, and what you want to do is to grab screenshots of interesting things, collect them, and then start putting themes together. Number 5, Appstore comments. If you have a specific competitor, go and check out the comments in the App Store. If someone's unhappy or if there's something weird or they'll talk about things that they like or don't like, this could also work for going to Amazon if you have a physical product that you're actually selling and going and check out the comments. What are the reviews? Understand the psychology behind someone who's going a little bit deeper. This gives us great insight into the early stages of understanding the demand, what's good about someone else's product, and how there might be an opportunity in us improving it. Check out the App Store comments and you will not just find nice things. Number 6, day in the life of. This can also be performed during a customer discovery interview, but it's essentially a process where we try to understand from the perspective of the customer we think we're going to be serving, what does their day look like exactly? You might want to zoom into the specific place where you believe your product might solve something, but I would actually start from scratch and to really go in depth. What are the kind of things that these people are doing on a routine daily basis? We'll find there might be similarities between those, and those will be opportunities not only to understand what these people are doing, but also what are their frustrations, and then how we can tackle them, how we might want to best present our product as well. Number 7, card sorting. So basically, after you've done some interviews, we have an understanding of the specific benefits that people are looking for, the transformations, all of that stuff. So this is a process in which we get a couple of people together who are specifically people who you think you're going to be targeting, and we're going to ask them to actually rank these things that we've identified in other customers like them. So you should gather these people in a room, take stickies, or have them do this on an online whiteboard. You can write down things that you've discovered and ask them to rate them in order of importance. So for example, what are the key benefits you're looking for? If you already know there are 4 that are coming back over and over, get them to rank them. It'll give you good insight into which ones you believe are more important and which ones the customer actually believe are most important. Number 8, box design. This is the process of creating a designed version of something that doesn't actually exist, whether it's an app, a physical product, or anything else, and putting it in front of the customer to see if we can get them to click because they're interested in it. It essentially makes this more tangible even before you actually have it. And it's a great way to test if people want it. Number 9, if you have a physical product, a great strategy is to actually create with a 3D printer a first prototype of that product that you can use and take photography of to be able to show to people on the website. Similarly, instead of having just the design of it, and to have people actually actually test it out and give you feedback on it. And by the way, this is a great way to create a prototype to then send to manufacturers overseas maybe to be able to produce this on a mass level in the future. Validation method number 10, video explainer. This is relatively straightforward. We're going to create a video explainer that runs people through the promise that we have for them, the benefits that they can get from it, explaining a little bit about the solution, usually kicking it off a little bit, talking about that problem, and finishing off with a call to action. Now, of course, you're not going to create a 90s commercial for this, but based on the different product that you have, you can choose the style as well. So if you're going for a more professional look, you could have it be an animated cartoon. You could have it be yourself shooting video like this, explaining it. Maybe hire a video editor who could add a little bit of B-roll into it. There's lots of different approaches here, but this is a great way to validate your idea. Method number 11, paid ads. The great thing about paid ads these days is that we can target them to very specific customers. So the idea with paid ads at this stage is not necessarily to get lots of sales. It's really to identify if we target a very specific group, are those people responding to the message that we have inside that ad? So are we able to get them to take an action that shows that there is some sort of demand or that they identify this problem as having it as well? And so the first question you probably have are, what ad network should we run these on? Well, this depends largely on your product. If you're targeting things like interests, you might go through something like Facebook, right? If you're targeting a specific job title, you might do things on LinkedIn. And if you're targeting people who are searching for specific things as they're going through the process, you might do it through Google. You can run your ads anywhere between 7 and 10 days with a budget of about $5 each. And remember that here, it's not about the sales, it's about the insight that we can get. It's about the learning so that we can know whether or not there's demand within that segment for that specific message. Wait, have you not subscribed to this channel? You're watching this long and you're not gonna sign up? Come on, click it. Method number 12, clickable prototypes. Now this is something that's been used for a very long time in Silicon Valley as well, but for a number of reasons, it's getting a little bit less popular. What is this? This is mainly for people who are launching app businesses. So it's essentially creating a designed version of your app that people can click through as if it actually works, but there's no code behind it. It's just animated design. Now the reason why these are a little bit outdated is because now there are actually tools that are called no-code tools that we teach in our academy that teach you how to drag and drop functionalities and actually build out these apps, these websites yourself without being technical and without having to learn how to code either. But again, the value in a clickable prototype is to get people to start interacting with it, start clicking on it, start using it, and to give you feedback on it as soon as possible so that then when you go into the actual build, you can build something that people actually are more likely to want, are more likely to use, and it's a little bit more polished than just the first version. Okay, so the next one might be the best one that you can do for your startup. It's called Concierge MVP. And it's essentially a process through which you're going to be delivering the value to a customer where you're actually doing a lot of these things manually. So you offer something and most of the work behind the scene is actually happening in person. And it's usually going to be you doing it, by the way. So for example, if you want to create a dog walking app, the first thing you might do is print out a couple of your numbers, walk to the dog park, give a bunch of people your card. And if someone calls you or if someone texts you to see your availability, you're going to understand a little bit more of the demand. Once you actually go and take that dog out for a walk, you're going to understand what is actually necessary to make the customer happy. Were there any things that the customer was not happy about? Oh, you didn't give him a treat, or oh, I would have wished you had given me a picture. It essentially is going to get you to go from the very idea that you have all the way to delivering the value without actually having to build complex software at all. And remember, most people don't care about your app. They don't care about the blockchain this or AI that. They care about the end result. For example, think of all these dating apps. What's the end goal? An individual wants to be matched with another individual to go on a date. They don't care about the machine algorithm that matches you perfectly based on past preferences and it's all fancy like that. They just care about going on a date. So at first, the idea is that we can fulfill things manually to provide the value for the customer, and then we start from understanding the process and the pros and cons of these things, then we can start doing it a little bit more automated by building out software, creating automations, but it's a perfect way to actually test demand. Number 14, Magic of Oz. You guessed it, it has to do with that movie, The Wizard of Oz. And it essentially refers to that very, very last scene where Dorothy goes and sees the Wizard of Oz who's spitting fire and has this impressive voice and, makes people very scared. But then you realize that the Wizard of Oz is not actually this grandiose thing. It's actually just some old guy with a microphone and a couple levers who's, making all the fire and all this drama. That's kind of the point here. The magic of Oz test is when you build a little bit of software and make it seem like everything's happening through this magic thing, but behind the scenes, things are happening manually at first. A great example of this is Get Made. The founders got together and built this super simple app. The only thing it did was that you could log in and try to book a cleaning service. That's literally all that it did. Once someone booked a service, it would essentially send them a text message. They send a text message to 5 or 10 maids that they knew who were accepted to participate in this experiment, and then they paid the maids after the job was done. Very simple process, and with very minimal investment, they were able to generate a lot of revenue. Now again, if you're trying to test and validate your business idea, we do have a course that you can check out at the WeAreNoCode Academy. It costs $49 a month to get access to it, and it'll break everything down into actionable steps, and it's gonna give you templates to go quicker as well. Now, as a recap, remember that as an entrepreneur, your main goal is to protect yourself so that you're investing your time and your money wisely. So since you are your only investor at this point, you want to try to mitigate risk, to reduce the risk in your startup. Startup validation is the best way to do that. And so before you go out there and spend $30,000 on a product that people don't use, remember to validate your startup idea thoroughly.